I want to tell you something that's going to sound absolutely wild at first, but stay with me because this is going to change everything you thought you knew about money, about abundance, about how this universe actually works. You've been asking, haven't you? You've been begging, pleading, hoping, wishing for money to come into your life. Maybe you've been doing affirmations, maybe you've been visualizing, maybe you've been praying until your knees hurt, asking, please, please, please let the money come. And I'm going to tell you something right now that might shock you. Stop it. Stop asking. Stop begging. Stop pleading with the universe like it's some distant, stingy parent who might say no. Because here's what I know, here's what I've seen work in my own life and in the lives of thousands of people I've worked with. The universe doesn't respond to begging, it responds to command. It responds to authority. It responds when you speak with the absolute certainty of someone who knows, not hopes, not wishes, but knows that what they're claiming is already theirs. You want $500,000? Then stop asking for it and command it to come to you. And I'm going to give you the exact words to use, the exact way to shift from powerless beggar to powerful creator. But first you need to understand why everything you've been doing hasn't been working. See, most people approach the universe like they're approaching a boss they're terrified of, like they're asking for a favor they don't really deserve. They say things like, I hope I can get some money, or wouldn't it be nice if money came to me, or please universe, if you could just send me a little bit of abundance, I'd be so grateful. And listen, I understand that energy, because I used to do the same thing. I used to pray and hope and wish and cross my fingers and wait for something good to happen. But here's what changed everything for me. I learned that the universe is not some separate entity out there, deciding whether or not I'm worthy. The universe is law. It's like electricity, like gravity, like mathematics. It doesn't judge you, it doesn't decide if you're good enough. It simply responds to the vibration you're putting out, to the consciousness you're holding, to the words you speak with feeling and conviction. When you ask, when you beg, when you plead, you're sending out a vibration that says, I don't have it, I'm separate from it, I'm not sure if I deserve it. Maybe it'll come, and maybe it won't. And the universe, being the perfect mirror that it is, reflects that right back to you. You get more lack, more waiting, more hoping, more distance between you and what you want. But when you command, everything shifts. When you speak with authority, when you declare what is yours with absolute conviction, you align yourself with a completely different law. You align yourself with the law of supply, with the law of abundance, with the truth that everything you need is already here, already available, already pressing in on you from all sides, just waiting for you to claim it. You see, there is a cosmic storehouse. I want you to really see this in your mind's eye. A vast, infinite supply room where everything you could possibly need already exists in complete and perfect form. Your health is there, your wealth is there, your right relationships are there. Your perfect home is there. Your life's work is there. Everything is there, wrapped up, labeled with your name, just waiting for delivery. But here's what most people don't understand. That storehouse doesn't respond to your fears. It doesn't respond to your doubts. It doesn't respond to your hesitation or your timid little wishes. It responds to your word of command. It responds to your decree. It responds when you speak as one having authority. Think about this for a moment. When a queen issues a command in her kingdom, does she beg? Does she plead? Does she say, oh, if it's not too much trouble, and if you feel like it, and if the circumstances permit, perhaps maybe you could consider bringing me water? No, she says, bring me water, and it is done. Not because she's unkind, not because she's arrogant, but because she understands her position. She knows who she is. She knows her authority. She knows the law of her kingdom. And you, my dear friend, are royalty in the spiritual kingdom. You are a child of the Most High. You have been given dominion. Dominion! Not someday. Not when you're more spiritual. Not when you've read enough books or meditated long enough. Now, right now, this very moment. But you must claim it. You must speak it. You must command it into manifestation. I remember a woman who came to me, completely defeated by her circumstances. She had been trying to find work for months. She had sent out what seemed like hundreds of letters. She had prayed, or what she called praying. Really, it was more worrying out loud to God. She would say things like, I hope I can find something, and maybe if I'm lucky, and I wonder if anything will turn up. I stopped her right there. I said, you're not going to find anything with that kind of talk. you're sending out an unclear message into the universe. The universe doesn't know what to do with maybe and I hope. Those aren't commands. Those are weak little wishes that dissolve before they even leave your lips. I taught her to change her whole approach. Instead of hoping and wishing, I had her stand in front of her mirror every single morning and declare, I have marvelous work in a marvelous way. I give marvelous service for marvelous pay. Notice, not I want or I hope for or I'm trying to get. I have. Present tense. Already done. Already accomplished in the invisible realm, now pressing through into the visible. At first, she felt foolish. She said, but it's not true. I don't have work. And I said, that's exactly why you must say it. You're calling those things that be not as though they were. You're commanding your good to come forth. You're speaking to that cosmic storehouse and giving it clear instructions about what to deliver to your door. Within 3 weeks, she received an offer for a position that was better than anything she had even imagined. Better pay, better location, better everything. And do you know what she said to me? She said, it was like it was waiting for me all along. Yes, that's exactly what I'm telling you. It was waiting for her all along. It was sitting in that cosmic storehouse with her name on it. But it couldn't come to her while she was wandering around in the wilderness of hoping and wishing and trying. It could only come when she commanded it forth. She finally understood something that changes everything once you see it. That the universe doesn't respond to your needs, your wants, or your desperation. It responds to your word, to your declaration, to the consciousness you hold as absolutely true. And this is where most people completely misunderstand what I'm teaching. They think speaking the word means saying affirmations while secretly doubting. They think it means repeating something pretty while their whole body is screaming the opposite. That's not speaking the word. That's just noise with fear underneath it. When you truly speak the word, there's no question mark at the end. There's no I hope, or maybe, or if it's meant to be. There's only the recognition of what already is in the invisible realm, waiting to take form. I worked with a man once who came to me absolutely frantic about money. He was behind on everything, creditors calling, facing eviction. And he wanted me to give him the magic words to say, the perfect affirmation that would fix everything overnight. But I could see immediately that his consciousness was soaked in poverty. Every word he spoke, every gesture he made was vibrating with lack. So I told him something that shocked him. Stop trying to get money. You're pushing it away with every desperate grab. He looked at me like I'd lost my mind. How could he stop trying when everything was falling apart? But here's what I knew that he didn't. Desperation is a repellent. Anxiety is a wall between you and your good. Every time he focused on what he didn't have, every time he rehearsed the disaster in his mind, he was speaking a word all right. Just not the word he wanted to manifest. I had him do something that felt completely backwards to his logical mind. I had him spend 1 week acting as if he were already financially secure, not pretending in a fake way but actually shifting his inner stance. When fear came up, he was to immediately deny it power and declare, my supply is endless and immediate, I am one with infinite abundance. The first few days, he said it felt ridiculous, like lying to himself while his world crumbled. But I told him to persist, because he wasn't lying, he was finally telling the truth. The truth of the spiritual realm, which is the only real truth there is. The circumstances he was facing were just old forms, old creations from his former consciousness. They had no power except what he gave them. By the 4th day, something shifted inside him. He told me later that he suddenly felt this incredible lightness, like a burden he'd been carrying for years just lifted. He stopped checking his bank account obsessively. He stopped rehearsing disaster. He simply held firm to the word he had spoken. Within 2 weeks, and I'm not exaggerating, this is exactly how it happened, he received money from 3 completely unexpected sources. An old debt he'd written off was repaid. A job opportunity appeared out of nowhere, and a family member he barely knew left him an inheritance. Now, the old way of thinking would say, what a lucky coincidence. But there are no coincidences in a universe governed by spiritual law. Those channels opened because he finally stopped, blocking them with his fear and doubt. He spoke the word, held to it, and the universe had to respond. It has no choice. That's the law. And here's what most people miss. They speak the word once, then spend the next 6 days contradicting it. They affirm abundance on Monday, then worry about bills on Tuesday. They declare health in the morning, then recite their symptoms all afternoon. They're like someone planting a seed, then digging it up every few hours to see if it's growing. The word must be times held asterisk, protected, nurtured in silence and faith. I knew a woman who wanted to heal a long-standing family rift. For years, she had tried everything: letters, phone calls, mediators. Nothing worked. The harder she pushed, the worse it became. She was exhausted from effort. Then she learned this principle. She stopped trying to force the reconciliation. Instead, she spoke her word. There is divine love and harmony between us now. The perfect outcome is already established, and she held it. When fear came, she repeated it. When doubt whispered, she stood firm. She didn't talk about the problem anymore, didn't rehearse the old hurts, just held her word in perfect faith. 3 weeks later, she received a letter, an apology, an invitation to meet. The relationship healed so naturally, so easily. It was as if the old wounds had never existed. That's the power of the spoken word held in faith. Now, I know what you're thinking, but Florence, I've tried affirmations. I've spoken positive words. Nothing happened. And I'll tell you why. You were using words to times convince times yourself of something you didn't believe. You were hoping, wishing, trying to trick your subconscious. That's not speaking the word, that's begging. When you truly speak the word, there's no doubt in it, no pleading, no desperation. Just calm, certain declaration. You're not trying to make something happen. You're times announcing times what already is in the spiritual realm. Think of it like this. When a bot for Kundrian judge speaks a verdict, he doesn't hope it comes true. He doesn't wonder if it will work. He speaks, and it's done. Law is established. You have that same authority in your own life. You are the judge. Your word is law, but you must believe your own verdict. I've watched people transform their entire existence with this understanding. A man drowning in debt spoke the word of abundance and held it despite every appearance screaming poverty. Within months, opportunities he couldn't have imagined opened up, not through struggle, through alignment. A woman with a so-called incurable diagnosis refused to accept the verdict. She spoke the word of perfect health, held the vision of wholeness, and watched her body respond. Doctors called it miraculous. She called it law. This isn't positive thinking, beloved. This is metaphysical science. This is working with the creative power that spoke worlds into existence. The same power that said, "Let there be light," is the power behind your words when they're aligned with truth. When you look at your life right now, you're looking at the results of your past words and thoughts. Everything you see around you, your relationships, your bank account, your health, with your circumstances. These are the physical manifestations of the mental pictures you've been holding and the words you've been speaking. This is why complaining is so dangerous. When you complain about your lack, you're ordering more lack. When you speak of your illness, you're giving it power to remain. When you describe yourself as struggling or barely getting by, you're painting that picture before the universal forces that must bring it into form. I knew a woman who would tell everyone she met, "I'm always so tired, I never have any energy." And she wondered why she couldn't get through her days without exhaustion. She was putting that thought into the universal substance minute after minute, hour after hour. She was creating her own prison of fatigue with her words. I said to her, "Stop making that statement immediately. Begin to affirm, 'Infinite Spirit gives me boundless energy. I am vitalized and alert. Tiredness has no power over me." At first, she felt like she was lying. Her body still felt heavy, her eyelids still drooped. But I told her, "You're not lying, you're creating. You're speaking the truth in advance of its appearance." Within 2 weeks, something remarkable happened. She wrote to me and said, "I don't know how to explain it, but suddenly, I have energy I didn't know was possible. I wake up refreshed. I move through my day with vigor." Nothing in her external circumstances had changed. Same job, same family demands, same schedule. But she had changed the inner pattern, and the outer manifestation had to follow. You see, the subconscious mind doesn't argue with you. It doesn't say, "Well, let me check if that's true first." It simply accepts what you tell it as instruction and goes to work to make it real. This is why children are so suggestible. Their conscious, reasoning mind hasn't yet built up defenses against suggestions. But we adults retain this same mechanism. We've just forgotten how to use it deliberately. Your subconscious is like a faithful servant who never sleeps, never questions, never takes a day off. Tell it you're unsuccessful, and it will show you opportunities for failure. Tell it you're blessed and prosperous, and it will lead you to your supply through ways you never could have orchestrated with your conscious planning. The Bible tells us, "With the heart man believeth, not with the head, with the heart." Your heart belief is what's lodged in your subconscious. You might say with your mouth that you believe in prosperity, but if in your heart you believe you're destined to struggle, the heart belief wins every time. This is why we must impress the subconscious with new beliefs through persistent, feeling-filled words. When you make your affirmations, don't just recite them mechanically, like you're reading a grocery list. Feel them, see them, get emotionally involved with the truth you're speaking. If you're affirming abundance, see yourself with abundant resources. Feel the relief, the freedom, the joy. If you're affirming health, feel the vitality coursing through your body. Experience in imagination what you desire to experience in reality. Your subconscious responds to pictures charged with feeling. Now let me share with you one of the most powerful exercises I've ever taught. I call it the evening revision, and it has transformed countless lives. Before you sleep, before you enter that threshold state where the subconscious is most receptive, take a few moments to review your day not as it was, but as it should have been. Did someone speak harshly to you? Revise the scene. Hear them speaking kindly instead. Did you feel anxious during an important meeting? Replay it with confidence, seeing yourself calm and assured. Did you miss an opportunity? Reimagine yourself seizing it with both hands. You are not denying what happened, you are instructing your subconscious mind in what patterns you wish to establish going forward. You are teaching it what you expect from life. This is not fantasy, this is reprogramming. Your subconscious doesn't distinguish between an actual experience and one vividly imagined with feeling. When you revise your day, you are literally overwriting the negative impression with a positive one. You are breaking the pattern before it can become a habit. And gradually, mysteriously, you will find that your days begin to unfold according to the revision rather than the old pattern. I once worked with a woman who felt constantly overlooked at her workplace. Every meeting, she felt invisible. Every suggestion she made seemed to fall on deaf ears. We began the evening revision. Each night, she would replay the day's meetings, but this time, seeing her colleagues listening attentively, seeing her ideas met with enthusiasm, hearing words of respect and appreciation. She did this faithfully for 3 weeks. Then something remarkable happened. Her supervisor called her into his office to ask her opinion on a new project, something he had never done before. Within 2 months, she was promoted. Did the revision cause the promotion? She changed the inner pattern, and the outer circumstances rearranged themselves to match. That is always how it works. You see, most people are running on default programming installed years ago. Childhood conditioning, past failures, inherited beliefs, all of this creates automatic patterns that play out again and again. The evening revision is one of the most effective tools for breaking these patterns and installing new ones. It takes perhaps 10 minutes before sleep, but those 10 minutes are worth more than hours of ordinary effort. And here's another truth that will serve you well. The universe is always saying yes to you. Always. It never contradicts you. It never argues. It simply reflects back to you whatever you are convinced is true. If you are convinced life is hard, the universe says, yes, life is hard for you, and provides evidence. If you are convinced opportunities are everywhere, the universe says, yes, opportunities are everywhere for you, and suddenly you see them on every corner. This is why arguing with others about your limitations is so dangerous. Every time you defend your weakness, you strengthen it. Every time you explain why something can't work for you, you instruct your subconscious to make sure it doesn't work. I've watched people talk themselves out of their miracles 1,000 times. They receive an intuitive nudge, a sign, a door beginning to open, and then they rush to explain to anyone who will listen why it probably won't work out, why they're not ready, why the timing is wrong. Stop defending your limitations. Stop explaining why you can't. The moment you catch yourself building a case for your own defeat, stop mid-sentence. Reverse it. Begin instead to build a case for your success. I have seen people literally turn their lives around in a single afternoon by this simple practice. A woman once came to me drowning in debt, convinced she would lose her home. Every conversation she had was a rehearsal of her imminent failure. When the bank forecloses, she would say, after I lose everything. She was not predicting, she was decreeing. I stopped her and said, you are writing the script of your life with those words. Tear up that script, write a new one. She looked at me as though I had suggested she sprout wings and fly. But she tried, reluctantly at first, then with growing conviction. Instead of when I lose my home, she began to say. My home is divinely protected. Instead of I can't pay my bills, she declared. Money flows to me easily and naturally. It felt like lying at first, she told me. But within weeks, an unexpected opportunity arose, a position she hadn't even applied for, offering twice her previous salary. The debt that had seemed insurmountable melted away. Was it magic? No. It was law, the law of mental equivalence. She changed the inner image, and the outer world had no choice but to conform. You see, the universe is not interested in your struggle. It is only interested in your conviction. It does not reward effort, it rewards alignment. When you align your speech with your desire, you set into motion forces you cannot see but which are more real than anything your physical eyes behold. This is why the ancient teachers spoke in parables about faith the size of a mustard seed moving mountains. They were not being poetic. They were describing mechanics. The size of your faith is measured not by how loudly you pray, but by how consistently you speak and think in agreement with your answered prayer. Now, some of you are thinking, but I've tried affirmations. I've tried positive thinking. Nothing changed. Let me tell you why. You were standing in front of the mirror saying, I am prosperous, while your inner dialogue screamed, who are you kidding? Look at your bank account. You were trying to paint over rust without removing it first. Before your words can have power, you must first withdraw power from the old words. You must stop energizing the narrative of lack, of limitation, of impossibility. Every time you repeat your sad story, you are watering dead plants. Stop watering them. Let them wither from neglect. Withdraw your attention, your emotion, your voice, from everything you do not wish to experience. Then, and only then, plant new seeds with your words. Speak to your body as you wish it to be. Speak to your finances as you wish them to be. Speak to your relationships as you wish them to be. Not as they appear, but as you intend them to become. This is not denial, it is creation. You are not ignoring reality, you are selecting which reality you will participate in. Every word is a choice. Will you use this moment to reinforce the old pattern or to establish a new one? The universe responds not to your wishes, but to your declarations, and there is a profound difference between the two. A wish carries the energy of lack, I wish I had more money, means I do not have enough. A wish places your goods somewhere in the future, always just out of reach. But a declaration? A declaration claims what is already yours in the invisible realm. When you say, I am divinely guided in all my ways, you are not expressing a hope, you are stating a spiritual fact. You are aligning yourself with the truth of your being. The law responds instantly to this vibration. It begins rearranging circumstances, opening doors, bringing the right people across your path. Not because you begged or pleaded, but because you claimed your inheritance. I have watched people transform their entire financial situation through one powerful declaration, repeated with conviction. A woman came to me once, drowning in debt, terrified of opening her mail. Her words had been all about lack, fear, and worry. I'll never get out of this hole, she would say. The bills just keep coming. And of course they did. She was ordering more of the same with every statement. I asked her to change just one thing, her response when she thought about money. Instead of the litany of complaints, she was to say, my God is a God of plenty, and I am heir to all his riches. That was all, just that one statement repeated whenever fear arose. Within 3 weeks, an old debt she had written off was repaid. A week later, she received a surprise bonus at work. Within 2 months, she had received enough unexpected income to clear half her debt. But more importantly, her relationship with money had changed. She no longer felt like a victim. She felt like a steward of divine substance. And divine substance responded to her new consciousness. This is not magic, this is law. The substance of the universe is malleable, responsive, obedient to the word spoken in faith. But it must be your word, not the word of your circumstances. When you allow your circumstances to dictate your words, you lock yourself into a cycle of repetition. The same patterns play out again and again because you keep authorizing them with your speech. Breaking this cycle requires vigilance. You must catch yourself in the act of negative declaration and immediately reverse it. Not tomorrow, not when you feel better immediately. The moment you hear yourself say, "Nothing ever works out for me," you stop, you take a breath. And you say, "I cancel that word. I now declare that everything is working together for my highest good." Some will say this is denial. They will accuse you of being unrealistic, of refusing to face facts. But what are facts? Facts are simply conditions that have already manifested, the residue of yesterday's thinking. You are not denying them, you are refusing to give them continued life through your craft, attention and declaration. You are withdrawing your creative energy from what you do not want and investing it in what you do want. This is not passivity. This is the highest form of action, action in the invisible realm where all things begin. Before anything appears in your world, it must first exist in your consciousness. And your words are the building blocks of your consciousness. Change your words, and you change your consciousness. Change your consciousness, and you change your world. Now, let me show you something that will transform the way you speak to yourself forever. There are 4 words that build your faith, and 4 words that destroy it. The words that build are, is, now, I am, and it is done. The words that destroy are, will, hope, someday, and trying. Do you see the difference? One set speaks in the eternal now. The other postpones your good into a future that never arrives. When you say, "I will be successful," you place success perpetually out of reach. But when you say, "I am successful now," you claim it in this moment, and the universe must respond. I learned this lesson from a woman who came to me desperate for healing. She had been affirming for months, "I hope I will be healed," but she remained sick. When I taught her to say instead, "I am healed, it is done, thank you, Father," her healing manifested within days. You see, hope without faith is just postponement. And trying is the language of effort, not demonstration. The universe doesn't respond to your effort, it responds to your acceptance. Jesus never said, "I will try to heal you," or "I hope you get better someday." He said, "Rise and walk, be thou made whole." It is done. And it was done, in that very moment, because his words carried the consciousness of completion. This is why I tell my students, speak only in the present tense. Speak only of what is, not what will be. If you're speaking treatment for prosperity, don't say, "Money will come to me." Say, "Money comes to me easily and constantly from expected and unexpected sources." Better yet, I give thanks for my immediate, endless supply. Do you feel the difference in your body when you speak those words? One feels like waiting, the other feels like receiving. And here's something most people never understand. Your subconscious mind cannot work toward a future goal. It can only accept a present fact. When you say, "I will be abundant," your subconscious hears, "I am not abundant now." And it faithfully reproduces your current state of lack. But when you say, "I am abundantly supplied," your subconscious accepts this as truth and begins immediately to manifest circumstances that match this consciousness. This is not self-deception. This is aligning yourself with truth that already exists in the invisible realm of divine mind. Everything that will ever manifest in your life already exists as a completed idea in divine mind. Your word doesn't create it, your word claims it. Your word brings it from the invisible into the visible. Think of it this way. Somewhere in divine mind, there is a perfect you, living your perfect life, experiencing your perfect good. That version of you isn't coming someday, it exists now. Your words either align you with that reality or keep you separated from it. I once worked with a talented artist who couldn't sell her paintings. When I asked her how she spoke about her work, she said, "I hope someday someone will appreciate my art." I stopped her right there. "There's your problem," I said. "You're pushing appreciation into someday, which never comes." I taught her to say instead, "The perfect buyer for my work recognizes its value now. My paintings are claimed and appreciated this very day." Within a week, a gallery owner walked into her studio, bought 3 paintings on the spot, and commissioned more. The demonstration came because she stopped waiting for permission from tomorrow and claimed her good today. You see, the universe doesn't understand later. It only responds to the vibration you're sending right now, in this present moment. When you say, "Someday I'll be happy," you're actually affirming, "Today I am not happy," and the universe says, "Your wish is my command." You are not happy today. This is why I always tell my students, change your words about time itself. Instead of "I hope things will get better," say "Things are getting better now." Instead of one day I'll be successful, declare, I am walking in my success this very moment. You're not lying to yourself, you're aligning yourself with the truth that exists in the spiritual realm, waiting to manifest in the physical. I once knew a man who came to me absolutely convinced he was too old to start over. He'd lost his business at 53 and felt his life was essentially finished. Every word from his mouth was about the past, what he used to have, who he used to be, opportunities that were gone forever. The past is a place you visit in memory, not a place you live. I told him, you're standing in yesterday's house while today's blessing knocks at a door you can't even hear. He didn't understand at first. So I gave him an assignment. For 30 days, he was forbidden to speak about the past unless absolutely necessary. Every time he caught himself dwelling on what was, he had to immediately state something true about now or about his desired future. It was harder for him than any physical labor. His entire identity was wrapped up in his former success. But gradually, his words changed. I used to own the biggest store in town, became I am open to new and wonderful opportunities. I had everything and lost it, became I am guided to my right place of prosperity. Within those 30 days, a former colleague contacted him about a consulting opportunity. Within 6 months, he'd built a new business, different from the old one, but perfectly suited to who he had become. And here's what delighted me most. He told me the new venture brought him more joy than the old one ever had. I was so busy mourning the past, he said, I couldn't see that life was trying to give me something better. This is the deception of time. It makes you believe that because something hasn't happened yet, it won't happen. Or that because something did happen, it must keep happening. Both are prisons. The truth is this: every moment is a fresh beginning. Every word you speak now is creating your next experience. The universe doesn't care what happened yesterday or what you fear about tomorrow. It's listening to the vibration you're sending out right this second. I want you to understand something profound. You are always prophesying your own future. When you say, I never get the good opportunities, you're not making an observation, you're placing an order. When you say, things always work out for me, you're not being naive, you're commanding your good to appear. Your words about time are particularly powerful because they contain your belief about possibility itself. Notice how people speak, and you'll see their future written in their phrases. The woman who says, I'm always late, will be. The man who says, I never have enough time, won't. The person who declares, everything happens at the perfect time for me, will experience a life of divine timing. This isn't magic. It's law as reliable as gravity, as consistent as mathematics. Your word is your wand, and you're always casting spells, whether you realize it or not. So the question becomes, what spells are you casting right now? Listen to yourself for just one day. Track the phrases that fall from your lips without thought. I can't afford that. That's just my luck. I never get what I want. Good things don't happen to people like me. Each one is a decree, an instruction to the invisible forces that shape your experience. I worked with a woman, let's call her Margaret, who couldn't understand why money slipped through her fingers like water. She had a decent income, no extravagant habits, yet she lived in constant financial anxiety. When I asked her to pay attention to her speech, she was shocked. Dozens of times each day, she said things like, I'm so broke. Money just disappears. I'll never get ahead. She was speaking her reality into being with such consistency that the universe had no choice but to obey. We began the simple practice of changing her words. Instead of, I'm so broke, she trained herself to say, money flows to me easily. When bills arrived, instead of, I can't afford this, she declared, I am abundantly supplied. It felt ridiculous to her at first, like lying. But here's what she discovered: the universe doesn't judge your words as true or false. It simply responds to them as instructions. Within 3 months, Margaret received an unexpected inheritance from a distant relative. A side project she'd abandoned suddenly attracted buyers. Opportunities appeared that had always been there, but that she'd been vibrationally misaligned with. She hadn't changed her circumstances through willpower, she'd changed her words, which changed her consciousness, which changed her reality. Your subconscious mind is listening to every word you speak. It doesn't argue. It doesn't fact-check. It accepts your statements as commands and sets about making them true. When you say, I'm terrible with money, your subconscious says, yes, sir, and sabotages your financial decisions. When you say, I never meet the right people, it closes your awareness to the perfect connections standing right in front of you. This is why affirmations work, not because they're mystical incantations, but because they're conscious reprogramming of the instructions you've been unconsciously giving all along. You're not trying to fool the universe with positive thinking. You're aligning your conscious declarations with the truth of your divine inheritance. But, and this is crucial, you must speak with conviction. Mumbling affirmations while your heart screams the opposite is like pressing the accelerator and brake simultaneously. Your words must carry feeling, authority, the weight of knowingness. Not hope, not wishful thinking. Certainty. When you declare infinite spirit, open the way for my great abundance, you're not begging, you're not asking permission. You're stating a fact and expecting the universe to rearrange itself accordingly. Because it will. It must. That's the law. Think of a captain steering a ship. He doesn't apologize to the ocean for choosing his direction. He doesn't hope the vessel might possibly perhaps consider turning. He grips the wheel with authority, and the ship obeys. Your words are that wheel. The question is, are you steering, or are you letting every passing wave of circumstance throw you about? I've seen this principle work in matters of health, relationships, career, every dimension of human experience. A man declared daily, "My body is a temple of the living God, radiating perfect health," while doctors gave him grim prognoses. His body responded not to the medical verdict, but to his persistent decree. A woman affirmed, "My perfect partner is now revealed to me after years of disappointing relationships." Within weeks, she met her husband in the most unexpected circumstances. These aren't anomalies. They're demonstrations of law in action. Your word is your wand. Every time you speak, you are issuing a decree to the universe. This isn't poetry, it's mechanics. The vibration of your words sets forces into motion that must manifest in your physical world. When you say, "I never have enough money," you are commanding lack to appear in your experience. When you say, "No one understands me," you are ordering isolation. When you declare, "I always get sick in winter," you are legislating illness into your body. The universe doesn't debate with you. It doesn't argue or suggest alternatives. It simply says, "Your wish is my command," and proceeds to arrange circumstances to match your words exactly. I once knew a woman who constantly said, "I'm afraid I'll end up alone." She had many opportunities for companionship, but each relationship dissolved inexplicably. She couldn't understand why connection eluded her until she heard herself speak. The moment she recognized her own decree, she changed it. She began affirming, "My right companion now manifests in my life." Within 3 months, she was engaged to a man who had been in her social circle all along, someone she had never truly seen before. This is why the mystics spoke of guarding your tongue. They understood that words are not mere sounds, they are creative forces that shape reality itself. Notice how you speak about your body. Do you say, "My bad back," or "my weak digestion," or "my terrible memory"? You are claiming these conditions as permanent possessions. You are signing a lease agreement with illness. Instead, speak to your body as you would command an obedient servant. Say, "Every cell in my body is now vibrating with perfect health." Say, "I am the radiant expression of life itself." Speak to your circumstances the way a general speaks to troops with authority and expectation of obedience. The Bible says that life and death are in the power of the tongue. This isn't metaphorical. Your words are literally creating your future experience in this very moment. But here's what most people miss. You must speak your word without wavering. You cannot affirm abundance in the morning and complain about lack in the afternoon. You cannot declare health at noon and recite your symptoms at dinner. Your word must be steadfast. It must be unshakable. Like a gardener who plants a seed and then trusts the process, you must plant your word and let it take root in the invisible substance of the universe. I've watched students sabotage their own demonstrations by this very inconsistency. They'll do their spiritual work, in the morning affirm, visualize, pray, and then spend the rest of the day in fear-based conversations, worry-filled thinking, and doubt-laden speech. And they wonder why nothing changes. Let me tell you something that will transform your understanding. The universe doesn't respond to your occasional positive thought. It responds to your dominant mental atmosphere. It's not the prayer you say once that matters, it's the consciousness you maintain throughout your day. You are always speaking your word, whether you realize it or not. Every thought is a word spoken into the invisible. Every feeling is a decree sent forth into the creative medium. Every belief is a command to the universe. When you say, "I can't afford that," you're not just making a statement. You're issuing a command to the universe to keep that thing away from you. When you say, I always get sick in winter, you're not predicting the future, you're creating it. When you say, nobody appreciates me, you're not describing reality, you're ordering the universe to arrange circumstances that match that declaration. This is why the mystics and masters have always taught, watch your words, guard your tongue, monitor your thoughts. Now, I can hear some of you thinking, but Florence, are you saying I can never express what I'm feeling? That I have to pretend everything is perfect when it's not? No, dear one. I'm saying there's a difference between acknowledging where you are and making it your permanent address. There's a difference between observing a condition and identifying with it. You can say, there is an appearance of lack in my experience right now, but I know my supply is infinite and always available. You can say, this body is showing symptoms, but I recognize the perfect health that is my divine birthright. You can say, this situation looks impossible, but I know that with God, all things are possible. See the difference? You're being honest about the appearance without giving it power. You're acknowledging the current condition without making it your truth. You're observing the problem without marrying it. This is the art of non-resistant speaking. You're not fighting against what is, you're simply refusing to give it authority over what will be. I had a student once who was facing a terrible financial crisis. Bills piling up, creditors calling, bank account nearly empty. She came to me in tears, asking what to do. I told her, stop talking about it, stop rehearsing the problem. Every time you tell someone how bad things are, you're commanding more lack to come into your life. She looked at me like I'd lost my mind. But Florence, she said, I need help. I need to tell people what I'm going through. Tell God, I said. Tell the universe. State your problem once, then state your solution 1,000 times. Declare your word. Say, infinite supply now manifests in my life. Every bill is paid, every need is met. I am abundantly supplied. Say it until you feel it. Say it until you believe it. Say it until you see it. She did. And within 2 weeks, an unexpected check arrived in the mail. An old debt someone owed her that she'd completely forgotten about. The exact amount she needed to catch up on everything. She called me, breathless with excitement. Florence, the money just showed up, out of nowhere. But I reminded her gently, it wasn't out of nowhere. It came from the invisible substance she'd been claiming all along. She just had to stop blocking it with her worry and panic. You see, the universe works through channels we already have available. It doesn't usually drop gold bricks from the sky, though honestly, I wouldn't put it past divine intelligence to surprise us that way if it needed to. But usually, supply comes through what appears to be natural, logical means. An unexpected refund, a client you haven't heard from in months, a gift, a raise, an opportunity. The magic isn't in creating something from nothing. The magic is in opening yourself up so wide that what's already yours can finally reach you. Now, I want to address something that trips people up constantly. They ask me, Florence, how long should I wait? How long do I keep affirming before I give up? And right there, right in that question, is the problem. The moment you set a deadline for God, you're operating from doubt, not faith. Jesus said, therefore I tell you, whatever you ask for in prayer, believe that you have received it and it will be yours. Not will be someday have received. Present perfect tense. It's already done in the invisible realm. Your job is simply to stay in that consciousness until it manifests in the visible. I knew a man who wanted to sell his business. He'd been trying for 2 years with no success. 2 years of worry, of lowering the price, of feeling desperate. He came to me exhausted, ready to just give it away for nothing. I told him, you're trying to force a sale instead of allowing the divine sale. We worked together on his consciousness. He stopped seeing himself as desperate to unload a burden. He started affirming, the perfect buyer who recognizes the full value of this business is making their way to me now. He let go. Truly let go. Stopped checking his phone every 5 minutes for the realtor. Stopped talking about it obsessively. Stopped running scenarios in his head about what he'd settle for. And you know what happened? 3 weeks later, someone contacted him directly, not through the realtor, someone who'd heard about the business through a casual conversation. They paid his original asking price without negotiation. Said it was exactly what they'd been looking for. The universe was trying to bring them together all along, but his frantic energy kept pushing the opportunity away. The moment he relaxed into faith, the deal arranged itself. This is what I mean about your job being to keep the faith, and God's job being to deal, handle the details. You don't need to know how, your demonstration will come. In fact, the moment you insist on knowing the how, you limit the infinite ways spirit can work. I've seen people block their good for years because they had a fixed idea about how their answers should arrive. A woman wanted to get married, but she insisted he had to be from her social circle, had to work in a certain profession, had to look a certain way. She had a checklist, you see. And every man who didn't match it got dismissed immediately, even when there were lovely men interested in her. I finally said to her, "My dear, you're trying to be God's personal assistant. You're not placing an order, you're dictating terms. Divine intelligence knows the perfect partner for you, but you keep turning away everyone who doesn't match your mental picture." She resisted this at first. We always do, don't we? We like to think we know best. But eventually, she started affirming instead, "The man who is divinely designed for me is now making himself known." Within months, she met someone at a friend's gathering. He wasn't from her social circle, he was from another city, visiting. He didn't work in the profession she thought she wanted, he was an artist. He didn't look exactly like her mental picture. But oh, the connection between them, the joy, the harmony. She told me later, "If I'd stuck to my list, I would have missed the love of my life." And I've seen that same pattern over and over. The person who insists on exactly 6 feet tall misses the 5'9" soulmate. The one demanding a specific profession overlooks the artist who would complete them. The one wanting a particular background passes by the perfect partner. Why does this happen? Because finite minds cannot conceive infinite possibilities. Your conscious mind operates from past experience, from conditioning, from limitation. It can only want what it already knows. But your divine self knows possibilities you haven't even imagined yet. Think of it this way. If you lived your whole life in a small village, you could make a very detailed list of your ideal partner based on the people you'd seen. Height, hair color, occupation, all from your limited experience. But what if your perfect match lives in a city you've never visited, works in a field you've never heard of, possesses qualities you don't even have words for yet? Your list would actually prevent you from recognizing them. This is why I teach. Infinite Spirit, give me a definite lead. Let me know if there is anything for me to do. Not a list, not demands, but receptivity to divine guidance that operates from a much higher intelligence than your conscious mind can access. Now, does this mean we shouldn't know what we truly need? No. There's a profound difference between essence and form, between principle and specification. You can know you need a relationship based on mutual respect, that's principle. But demanding someone who drives a specific car brand, that's limitation. You can affirm a partnership that supports your highest good, that's essence. But insisting they must have attended a particular school, that's constriction. You can recognize your need for emotional safety, that's wisdom. But requiring exactly 3 children from a previous marriage, that's your conscious mind playing God. Do you see the distinction? One leaves room for divine intelligence to work, the other puts it in handcuffs. I had a student, a talented architect, who desperately wanted a creative partner. He made his list: must paint, must know color theory, must understand composition. Very specific. Very limiting. His perfect partner turned out to be a musician. She didn't paint, didn't know a thing about visual art. But their creative energies merged in ways he never could have imagined. She heard buildings as symphonies. He saw her music as architecture. Together, they created installations that merged sound and space in revolutionary ways. If he'd clung to his list, he would have dismissed her at first meeting. She didn't check his boxes. But his deeper consciousness recognized what his surface mind could not, that creativity has infinite expressions, and his soul needed her particular frequency. The universe has such a sense of humor about this. It loves to give you exactly what you need in the precise form you never would have requested. The woman who wants security might receive it not through a wealthy partner, but through one who teaches her to value herself so completely that she becomes her own source of security. The man seeking adventure might find it not with a world traveler, but with someone who shows him the extraordinary in the everyday, the miracle in the mundane. This is what I mean by divine intelligence. It sees what we actually need for our soul's evolution, not just what our personality desires for its comfort. So instead of lists, I teach what I call spiritual preparation. You prepare yourself to recognize your good when it appears. You clear the channel. You become the thing you wish to attract. And this is where most people stumble, you see. They want to become prosperous while still clutching their poverty consciousness. They want love while still rehearsing their resentments. They want health while still speaking disease into every conversation. It cannot work. You cannot serve two masters. Your consciousness can only produce results that match its fundamental nature. I had a woman come to me once, desperate for healing. She had been ill for years, had tried everything. "I'll do anything," she said, "just tell me what to do." So I asked her to stop talking about her illness. For just 1 week. She looked at me as though I'd asked her to fly. "But how will people know what I'm going through?" she protested. "They won't," I said. And that's precisely the point. She couldn't do it. Within a day, she was back to her litany of symptoms, her catalogue of suffering. And she wondered why she remained ill. Your words are not idle things. They are containers of consciousness. They are vibrations that ripple out into the invisible realm and return to you as form. When you speak, you are not describing reality, you are creating it. This is why I'm so firm about affirmations. Not as positive thinking exercises, not as denial of what is, but as conscious restructuring of your vibrational output. When you say, "I am surrounded by right action," you're not lying to yourself. You're tuning your consciousness to a different frequency. You're preparing the way. I teach my students to speak as though their good is already accomplished. Not, "I will be prosperous, but I give thanks for my endless supply." Not, "I hope to be healed, but every cell of my body is flooded with light." The universe responds to present tense. Declaration. And yes, at first it feels like pretending. Your mind rebels. Your circumstances seem to mock you. But you persist. You hold the word. You maintain the vision. And slowly, sometimes suddenly, the outer realm begins to shift. I've seen it happen 1,000 times. The woman who couldn't pay her rent, who began to affirm supply, who found an unexpected check in the mail. The man who had been rejected repeatedly, who affirmed his divine right to love, who met his perfect match within weeks. But here's what people miss. It's not magic, it's law. You're not manipulating reality with your words, you're aligning with the reality that already exists in the spiritual realm. Every good thing you can imagine already is. It exists in perfect form, in what I call the realm of the formless. Your job is not to create it, but to provide the consciousness through which it can manifest. Think of yourself as a channel. When the channel is clear, when your words, your thoughts, your emotional vibrations are in alignment, your good rushes through. When the channel is blocked with fear, doubt, resentment, or unworthiness, the flow stops. This is why forgiveness is so critical. Not for the other person's sake, but for yours. Every resentment you hold is a boulder in your channel. Every judgment is a dam holding back your good. I tell people, bless your enemies. Not because they deserve it, but because you deserve to be free. When you bless the person who wronged you, you dissolve the psychic tie. You release the energy that was bound up in anger and make it available for good. I had a student who had been cheated by a business partner, lost everything. He came to me seething with rage, planning legal revenge. "Bless him," I said. He thought I'd lost my mind. Bless him every day. Say, "I forgive you freely. I release you to your highest good. I am free and you are free." He didn't want to, but he was desperate enough to try. Within a month, the rage had dissolved. Within 3 months, a new opportunity appeared far better than what he'd lost. The partner who had cheated him? I don't know what became of him, but it no longer mattered. The chain was broken. What I want you to understand is this: resentment is expensive. It costs you your health, your happiness, your opportunities. It's a luxury you cannot afford. I knew a woman brilliant, accomplished, who held on to a grudge against her sister for 12 years. 12 years! The sister had borrowed money and never repaid it. $300. Not a fortune, but enough to matter. For 12 years, she rehearsed her grievance. At family gatherings, she was cordial but cold. At Christmas, she gave the obligatory gift but nothing more. In her mind, she replayed the injustice over and over, keeping it fresh, keeping it alive. And what did those 12 years cost her? Her sister became ill. They reconciled at the bedside, both women crying, both women apologizing. And when I saw her afterward, she said to me, "Florence, I would give everything I own to have those 12 years back. All that time wasted, all that love withheld, over $300. The currency of resentment is time, and time is the one thing you can never earn back. This is why forgiveness is not optional. It's not a spiritual luxury for saints and mystics. It's practical wisdom for anyone who wants to live freely. But here's where people stumble. They believe forgiveness means condoning what happened. They think forgiveness means saying, "It was fine, it didn't hurt." No. Forgiveness means saying, "It happened, it hurt, and I release my claim to payment." You see, when someone wrongs you, they create a debt in your mind. You feel they owe you an apology, an explanation, restitution, suffering, and you wait for that debt to be paid. You wait, and you wait. And while you wait, you are bound to them more tightly than any chain. Forgiveness is canceling the debt. It's declaring bankruptcy on the whole transaction. Not because they deserve it, but because you deserve freedom. I've watched people forgive the unforgivable. A mother whose son was killed. A woman whose husband abandoned her with 3 children. A man whose business partner stole everything. And in every case, every single case, the moment they released the demand for payment, something shifted. Not necessarily in their circumstances, but in them. They became lighter. Their faces changed. Their voices changed. They began to live again, instead of merely existing in protest. One woman said to me, "Florence, I thought if I forgave him, he would win. But when I finally let go, I realized I won. I won my life back." That's the great irony. Forgiveness feels like losing, but it's the only way to win. Now, I want to give you a tool. Because I am practical above all else, and sentiment without technique is useless. When you find yourself rehearsing a grievance, and you will, we all do, stop immediately. Don't fight the thought. Don't resist it. Simply redirect it. Say aloud, "I forgive persons, name completely, and release this situation to divine love. I am free, and they are free." Say it even if you don't mean it. Say it especially if you don't mean it. Because words have creative power, and you are planting a new seed in your consciousness. At first, your mind will rebel. It will say, "But what they did was wrong. They should pay." Let it protest, then repeat the statement. "I forgive, name completely, and release this situation to divine love. I am free, and they are free." Do this every single time the grievance arises, 10 times a day if necessary, 100 times. You are retraining your consciousness, replacing the old recording with a new one. And one morning, maybe not tomorrow, maybe not next week, but one morning you'll notice something remarkable. You thought of the person and felt nothing. No charge, no anger, no hurt. Just pure observation. Like watching clouds pass through the sky. And here's what's magnificent about this. When you stop reacting to their behavior, you stop feeding it energy. You stop playing the game. The person who is always criticizing you, suddenly they lose interest, because there's no reaction anymore, no defense, no explanation, no justification. You just smile and say, "Thank you for sharing that," and go about your day. The family member who always knew how to push your buttons, those buttons don't work anymore. Because you've disconnected the wires, you've removed the charge, and sometimes, not always, but sometimes when you stop reacting, the other person actually starts to shift. Because the dance requires 2 people, and if you stop dancing, they can't keep performing the same steps. But here's what's important to remember. You're not doing this to manipulate them into changing. You're not withholding reaction to control their behavior. You're doing it because you've genuinely released the charge. Because you've seen the truth behind the behavior. Because you've remembered who they really are beneath the fear and pain. Let me give you an example from my own life. I had a student once, a brilliant woman, successful in every external way. But she had this habit of subtly undermining other people in the class. A little comment here, a dismissive look there, nothing overt, just enough to make others feel small. The old me would have addressed it directly, perhaps confronted her, asked her to stop, but I had learned by then about seeing beneath behavior. So instead, I watched. And I saw that every time she made one of those subtle digs, she would immediately glance around the room to see if people still liked her, to see if she was still accepted. The behavior wasn't about making others small. It was about trying to make herself feel bigger. It was fear dressed up as superiority. So I started treating her with extraordinary kindness. Not in an obvious way, just genuine warmth. Acknowledging her contributions, seeing her gifts. And here's what happened. The undermining behavior stopped. Not because I corrected it, but because the need for it dissolved. When she felt genuinely seen and valued, she no longer needed to diminish others to feel worthy. Now, does this work every time? No. Sometimes people are so identified with their defensive patterns that nothing you do will shift them in the short term. They're on their own journey, their own timeline. But what changes every single time is you. Your experience, your peace, your freedom from reactivity. You stop being a prisoner to other people's behavior. You stop giving away your power to their moods, their judgments, their projections. You become free. And this is where real power lives, not in controlling others, not in making them behave the way you want them to behave, but in being absolutely unshakable in your own center, no matter what's happening around you. The ocean doesn't change its nature because a storm passes over it. The depths remain calm, regardless of what the surface is doing. You become like that, still, centered, at peace. And from that place of peace, you can actually be helpful. You can respond with wisdom instead of reacting from wounds. You see, here's what I know to be true. Your anxiety about their problems is not love, it's fear dressed up as concern. Real love, divine love, holds space without drowning in someone else's chaos. Real love says, I see you struggling, and I'm here, but I'm not going under with you. There's a beautiful image I want you to hold. Imagine you're standing on solid ground by a riverbank. Someone you love is in the water, struggling with the current. The wounded part of you wants to jump in, to prove your love through suffering with them. But here's what actually happens when you do that. Now there are two people drowning instead of one. The truly loving thing? Stay on solid ground, throw them a rope, be the stable presence they can reach for, but don't mistake drowning together for devotion. I've watched people sacrifice their own mental health on the altar of being there for others. They stop sleeping because someone they love is in crisis. They stop eating properly. They abandon their own healing practices. They put their entire life on hold. And they tell themselves, this is noble. This is what good people do. But the universe didn't put you here to martyr yourself for someone else's journey. It put you here to be whole, to be healed, to be a light. And you can't be a light if you've extinguished yourself. There's a reason airplane safety instructions tell you to put your own oxygen mask on first. It's not selfish, it's wisdom. You're no good to anyone if you can't breathe. The same applies to your emotional and spiritual oxygen. You must secure your own peace first, or you have nothing real to offer anyone else. Now, I can hear some of you saying, but Florence, what about compassion? What about being there for people? And yes, absolutely, compassion is essential. But there's a vast difference between compassion and codependency. Compassion says, I see your pain, and I hold space for your healing. Codependency says, I'll fix your pain so I can feel okay about myself. One is freedom. The other is a cage for both of you. When you're truly in your own healing, when you're connected to the divine pattern within you, you become naturally compassionate without becoming consumed. You can hold tremendous space for others because you're not trying to save them. You're trusting that they have their own connection to infinite intelligence. You're trusting that the same power that's healing you can heal them too. This is what it means to see someone with spiritual eyes. You don't look at them and see a broken person who needs you to be their savior. You look at them and see a divine being having a human experience, learning their lessons, walking their path. And from that recognition, you can be genuinely helpful. You can offer support without taking on their burden as your own. You can love them without losing yourself. I knew a woman once who spent 20 years trying to heal her sister's depression. 20 years of managing, fixing, counseling, rescuing. And at the end of those 20 years, her sister was still depressed, and she herself had developed such severe anxiety that she could barely function. Then one day, exhausted and desperate, she finally surrendered. She said out loud, God, I can't do this anymore. I release my sister to your care. I trust that you love her even more than I do. And something shifted. She stopped trying to manage her sister's moods. She stopped the daily phone calls where she'd try to talk her out of sadness. She stopped sending articles and book recommendations and suggestions for therapists. She just loved her, simply, quietly, without the frantic energy of fixing. And you know what happened? Within 6 months, her sister finally sought real help. She found a therapist who clicked with her. She started medication that actually worked. She began healing not because someone was pushing her, but because she was finally free to choose it for herself. And here's what struck me most: once Sarah's mom stopped trying to control the outcome, she discovered something radical. She could finally just love her daughter. Not love with conditions. Not love with fear attached. Not love, that's really just anxiety wearing a nice outfit. Just love. She could call Sarah and ask, "How are you?" Without it being code for, "Are you doing what I think you should be doing?" She could listen without mentally drafting her rebuttal. She could be present without trying to fix, manage, or redirect every single thing. And you know what happened? Their relationship transformed. Because Sarah wasn't fighting against constant pressure anymore, she could actually be vulnerable. She could share what was really going on. She could ask for support when she genuinely needed it because she knew her mother wouldn't weaponize that vulnerability into another campaign of control. This is the promise that surrender offers us. When we release our death grip on how we think things should unfold, we create space for something better than we could have orchestrated. Because here's the uncomfortable truth. Our anxious planning, our controlling, our insistence that things happen our way on our timeline, that's not wisdom, that's not protection. That's ego dressed up as concern. The ego tells us we're the puppet master, and if we just pull the right strings in the right order, everyone will dance the way they're supposed to. But the universe reality doesn't work that way. People aren't puppets. Situations aren't machines where you input anxiety and get output control. Florence Scovel wrote extensively about the battle between the ego and the divine plan. She observed that the ego's plans are always based on limitation, fear, and what it thinks it can manage. The ego says, "I can only be happy if this specific thing happens in this specific way." But the divine plan, the universe's plan, the natural unfolding of things operates from infinite possibility. It's not limited by our small imaginings of what success looks like, or our narrow definitions of happiness. When we surrender, we're not giving up. We're trading in our limited, anxiety-driven agenda for something vastly more intelligent, more creative, more generous than anything our worried minds could design. Think about it this way. Imagine you're trying to create a beautiful garden, but you're so anxious about it that you stand over each seed, pulling it up every day to check if the roots are growing properly. You're rearranging the soil, you're moving plants around every afternoon because you're not sure you planted them in the optimal location. You're so busy controlling the process that you're actually preventing the growth you desperately want to see. Surrender is deciding to plant the seeds, water them, provide good conditions, and then trust the process. Trust that the seed knows how to become a plant. Trust that the sun and soil and rain will do their work. Trust that your job is to tend, not to control. This is what Sarah's mother finally learned. She planted the seeds of love, respect, and healthy boundaries. She watered them with consistency and genuine care. And then she let go of strangling the outcome. She stopped checking her daughter's social media 17 times a day to monitor her mental state. She stopped calling Sarah's friends for check-ins that were really surveillance. She stopped Googling how to make adult daughter get therapy at 2 a.m. She surrendered the outcome, and in that surrender, she found peace. Not because everything became perfect overnight, it didn't. Sarah still had hard days. Recovery isn't linear. But Sarah's mother was no longer riding every single wave of her daughter's journey as if it were her own. She was supportive without being enmeshed. She was caring without being controlling. She had created healthy boundaries, those invisible lines that don't divide us from the people we love, but actually allow genuine connection to flourish. And here's what I want you to understand. Boundaries are not walls. They are not rejection. They are not evidence that you love someone less. Boundaries are the sacred space where true relationship becomes possible. When you have no boundaries, you're not actually closer to someone, you're merged with them, enmeshed with them, lost in them. And in that merging, both people lose themselves. I once counseled a woman, we'll call her Rachel, whose elderly father had become increasingly demanding. Every day, multiple phone calls. Every decision in his life required her input, her presence, her energy. Her siblings had quietly stepped back, leaving her to carry the entire emotional load of his loneliness and needs. Rachel came to me exhausted, resentful, and drowning in guilt about that resentment. "I should be more patient," she told me. "He's old. He won't be here forever." What kind of daughter gets irritated by her own father? But here's what Rachel couldn't see. Her resentment wasn't evidence of a character flaw. It was her soul's alarm system, telling her that something was out of balance. We worked together on establishing boundaries, not harsh ones, loving ones. She reduced the phone calls to once a day at a scheduled time. She enlisted her siblings to share responsibilities. She hired a companion for her father several afternoons a week, so he would have social connection that didn't depend entirely on her. And you know what happened? Her relationship with her father actually improved. When she wasn't running on empty, she could be genuinely present during their conversations. When she wasn't drowning in obligation, she could feel actual affection again. When she created space, love could breathe. This is the paradox that so many people miss. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do is create distance. Not cold distance, conscious distance, sacred distance. The distance that says, I love you, and I also honor my own needs. The distance that says, your emergency is not automatically my emergency. The distance that says, I will support you, but I will not sacrifice myself on the altar of your comfort. Because here's what I've observed over decades of working with people. Sustainable relationships require sustainable boundaries. You cannot pour from an empty cup. You cannot be endlessly available without becoming unavailable to yourself. You cannot rescue everyone without eventually needing rescue yourself. And when you finally collapse from exhaustion, depleted and resentful, you help no one, least of all yourself. I want you to think about the relationships in your life right now. Not just romantic ones, all of them. Your parents, your children, your friends, your colleagues, your extended family. Are there relationships where you consistently feel drained rather than nourished? Where you give far more than you receive? Where you find yourself saying yes when everything in you wants to say no? Those are the relationships calling out for boundaries. And I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, but if I set boundaries, they'll be hurt, they'll be angry, they'll think I don't care. And yes, that might happen. Because people who have benefited from your lack of boundaries often resist when you establish them. The person who's grown accustomed to your constant availability will protest when you're suddenly not available. The family member who's relied on you to solve all their problems will be uncomfortable when you stop solving them. The friend who's used you as an emotional dumping ground will feel abandoned when you're no longer willing to be that person. But their discomfort is not your responsibility to fix. Let me say that again, because it's crucial. Their discomfort with your boundaries is not your responsibility to fix. Your responsibility is to honor yourself while remaining kind. Your responsibility is to be clear while remaining compassionate. Your responsibility is to hold your boundaries firmly while still holding love in your heart. And here's what I've learned about that balance. It's not about being perfect at it. It's not about finding the exact right words every single time, or never feeling guilty, or never second-guessing yourself. The balance is in the practice. The balance is in the willingness to try, to adjust, to learn. Some days, you'll lean too far toward accommodating others. You'll catch yourself saying yes when you meant no, agreeing when you felt resistance, softening your truth until it almost disappears. And that's okay. That's information. That's feedback from the universe, showing you where you still need to strengthen your foundation. Other days, you might swing too far the other way. You might set a boundary with more force than necessary. Speak your truth with edges you didn't intend. Protect yourself so fiercely that connection becomes difficult. And that's okay too. That's also information. That's the universe showing you that you're learning, adjusting, finding your way. The goal isn't perfection. The goal is consciousness. The goal is awareness. It's noticing when you've accommodated too much and gently bringing yourself back to center. It's noticing when you've hardened too much and gently softening without collapsing. This is the dance of empowered living. This is the art of being both strong and soft, both clear and compassionate, both self-protective and open-hearted. I remember a woman who struggled with this balance for years. She'd spent so long people-pleasing that when she first started setting boundaries, she set them with walls high, thick, impenetrable walls. She went from doormat to fortress in a matter of weeks, and for a while, she thought this was strength. She thought this was what empowerment looked like, keeping everyone at arm's length, trusting no one, protecting herself at all costs. But then she realized something profound. She realized that while she was no longer being hurt by others, she was now hurting herself with her own isolation. She'd built walls so high that love couldn't get in anymore, joy couldn't get in, connection couldn't get in. She'd created a prison in the name of protection. And so she began the real work, the work of learning to have boundaries that were more like permeable membranes than impenetrable walls. Boundaries that could let the good in while keeping the harmful out. Boundaries that were firm but not rigid, clear but not cold. She learned to say, I love you, and I can't do that right now. She learned to say, I value our relationship, and I need to prioritize myself in this moment. She learned to say, I care about your feelings, and I also care about mine. She learned that kindness to others doesn't require cruelty to yourself, and that kindness to yourself doesn't require cruelty to others. This is the wisdom that changes everything. This is the understanding that frees you from the false choice between self-sacrifice and selfishness. You are allowed to be both caring and boundaried. You are allowed to be both loving and self-protective. You are allowed to be both generous and discerning. These qualities are not opposites. They are partners. They work together to create a life of integrity, a life of wholeness, a life where you honor both yourself and others. And when you live this way, when you practice this balance, something miraculous happens. The people who truly value you, who truly see you, who truly want what's best for you, they don't resist your boundaries. They respect them. They appreciate them. They see your boundaries as a sign of your self-respect, and they honor that. And when you respect yourself enough to set boundaries, something honors boundaries. Miraculous happens in your life. You stop being everyone's emergency contact. You stop being the person people call when they need something, but ignore when you need support. You stop being the backup plan, the option, the person someone reaches out to when everyone else is busy. Your energy shifts, your frequency changes, and the universe responds by sending you people who match that new frequency, people who respect boundaries, who understand reciprocity, who know how to give as much as they receive. I've watched this transformation happen so many times. A woman finally says no to the friend who only calls when she needs something. She stops answering every text immediately. She stops dropping everything to accommodate everyone else's schedule. And at first, yes, some people fade away. The takers leave. The users move on to find someone else with weaker boundaries. But then, space opens up. And into that space walk people of substance, people of integrity, people who say, I appreciate that you have boundaries. It shows me you know your worth. People who don't just take from you, they contribute to your life. This is the law of vacuum in action. Nature abhors a vacuum. When you clear out the people who don't respect you, you create space for those who do. But you have to be willing to make that space first. You have to trust that something better is coming. And here's what I want you to understand about boundaries and self-worth. Your boundaries teach people not just how to treat you, but how to treat themselves. When someone sees you honoring your time, your energy, your needs, you give them permission to do the same in their own life. You become a model. You show them what self-respect looks like. And some of them will rise to meet that example. They'll look at how you carry yourself and think, maybe I can do that too. Maybe I can stop saying yes to things that drain me. Maybe I can prioritize my own well-being. This is how you create change that ripples beyond yourself. This is how you elevate not just your own life, but the lives of everyone around you. But it requires courage. It requires you to disappoint people sometimes. It requires you to let people be upset with you. It requires you to value your peace more than you value being liked. And that's hard. Especially for those of us who were taught that our value lies in our usefulness to others. Especially for those who learned early that love is conditional, that we must earn it through service, through accommodation, through making ourselves small and convenient. But your worth is not conditional. Your worth is not determined by how many people you please, or how available you make yourself, or how much you sacrifice. Your worth is inherent. It existed before anyone ever asked anything of you, and it will exist long after you stop trying to prove yourself. The moment you truly grasp this, not just intellectually, but in your bones, everything changes. You stop performing worthiness and start embodying it. You stop seeking validation and start generating it from within. You stop asking, am I enough? And start declaring, I am enough. I have always been enough. This is the consciousness shift that transforms your entire reality. Because when you know your worth, you stop accepting crumbs. You stop settling for relationships that don't nourish you. You stop staying in situations that require you to diminish yourself. You begin to understand that your presence itself is the gift. Not what you do for people. Not how much you sacrifice. Not how small you make yourself to accommodate their ego. Just you, your energy, your wisdom, your light. And here's what happens when you truly embody this truth. People rise to meet you, or they remove themselves. And both outcomes serve you. The ones who rise, those are your people. They recognize what you bring. They honor it. They reciprocate. They don't take your generosity for granted because they understand its value. The ones who leave? They were never meant to walk with you at this elevation, and releasing them isn't loss, it's alignment. It's the universe making room for what actually matches your frequency. I watch people torture themselves trying to convince someone of their worth. Explaining, justifying, performing, bending over backward to prove they deserve respect. But darling, when you have to convince someone you're valuable, you've already lost. Your worth isn't up for debate. It's not something that needs to be argued or demonstrated. It simply is. Think about the sun. Does it apologize for shining? Does it dim itself because someone finds it too bright? Does it explain why it deserves to exist? No. It just shines. And everything that needs light finds it. That's your energy when you know your worth. You're not convincing. You're not chasing. You're not shrinking. You're just being fully, unapologetically, and the right people, opportunities, and circumstances are drawn to that authenticity. Now, I know what some of you are thinking. But isn't this selfish? Isn't this arrogant? Shouldn't we be humble? Let me be clear. Knowing your worth has nothing to do with arrogance. Arrogance is actually insecurity wearing a mask. It's the ego trying to prove something. True confidence, true worth is quiet. It doesn't need to announce itself. It doesn't need to diminish others to feel elevated. It simply stands in its truth and allows others to stand in theirs. And humility? Real humility isn't thinking less of yourself. It's thinking of yourself less. It's recognizing that everyone has inherent worth, including you. It's understanding that you're neither above nor below anyone else. You're all equal expressions of divine energy, each with unique gifts to offer. So when I say know your worth, I'm not asking you to become entitled or demanding. I'm asking you to stop betraying yourself, to stop accepting treatment that contradicts what you know to be true about your value. Because here's what I've observed. The people who struggle most with boundaries, who attract the most disrespect, who find themselves repeatedly undervalued, they're usually the most giving, the most compassionate, the most sensitive souls. They're not lacking worth. They're lacking the willingness to protect it. And protection isn't about building walls. It's about establishing standards. It's about saying, I will not participate in my own diminishment. I will not collaborate with people who refuse to see me clearly. This is especially crucial in your intimate relationships. How someone treats you when they want something versus when they have you, that tells you everything. Do they still pursue you? Do they still court your attention? Do they still prioritize your happiness? Or did they stop trying the moment they felt secure in your commitment? Because sustainable love isn't about the initial spark. Anyone can create intensity. Real love is in the maintenance, the daily choice, the continued effort. And you deserve someone who chooses you not just once, but repeatedly. Someone who sees your worth not just in the beginning, but especially in the middle, in the ordinary moments, in the difficult seasons, in the spaces where no one else is watching. Because real love isn't performed for an audience. It's not the grand gestures captured on camera or the public declarations that disappear as quickly as they're made. Real love is what happens when the door closes, when the filters come off, when there's no one left to impress. It's the partner who still reaches for your hand when you're both exhausted. The one who sees you at your worst and doesn't flinch, doesn't pull away, doesn't suddenly remember they have somewhere else to be. It's the person who knows all your flaws, all your fears, all the messy parts you try to hide from the world and stays anyway. Not because they're settling, not because they can't find better, but because to them, you times are times better. You are the choice they want to keep making. And here's what I need you to understand. When someone truly values you, you'll feel it in the consistency, not just the intensity. You'll see it in their actions, not just hear it in their words. They won't love you only when it's convenient, only when you're easy, only when you meet some impossible standard. They'll love you through the growth, through the healing, through the seasons when you're becoming, not just when you've arrived. But breadcrumbing? Breadcrumbing is someone who wants the benefits of your presence without the responsibility of actually being present. They want your attention when they're bored, your affection when they're lonely, your energy when they're depleted, but they disappear the moment you need the same from them. They keep you interested just enough that you don't leave, but they never give you enough to actually build anything real. And they've convinced themselves and tried to convince you that this is somehow acceptable, that you should be grateful for the scraps, that wanting more makes you needy, demanding, too much. But let me tell you something that might change everything. Wanting consistency isn't being needy. Expecting reciprocity isn't being demanding. Requiring someone to actually show up for you isn't asking for too much. It's called having standards. It's called knowing your worth. It's called refusing to participate in your own diminishment. And yes, I know it's hard. I know that sometimes those breadcrumbs feel like the only sustenance you've received in so long that you convince yourself they're enough. I know that you've justified and rationalized and explained away behavior that deep down you know isn't acceptable. I know you've told yourself, maybe they're just going through something. Maybe they're afraid of commitment. Maybe if I'm just patient enough, understanding enough, forgiving enough, they'll. But here's the truth they won't tell you in those articles about understanding your partner's attachment style. You cannot love someone into loving you back. You cannot be patient enough to make someone ready who isn't ready. You cannot sacrifice enough of yourself to make someone value you who doesn't already see your worth. And the most painful part? Sometimes the person breadcrumbing you genuinely doesn't realize what they're doing. Sometimes they think those occasional check-ins, those sporadic bursts of attention, those promises they never quite keep, they think that's enough. They think that's trying. But impact matters more than intention. And if the impact of their behavior is that you feel confused, anxious, undervalued, and constantly wondering where you stand, then their intention becomes irrelevant. You deserve clarity. You deserve certainty. You deserve to be with someone who makes you feel chosen, not confused. And I promise you, when you finally experience what it feels like to be with someone who's genuinely invested, someone who shows up consistently, someone who doesn't make you question whether they care, you'll look back at these breadcrumb situations and wonder how you ever convinced yourself it was enough. Because it was never enough. And deep down, you always knew that. You know what the real tragedy is? It's not just the time you lose waiting for someone who's barely there. It's what happens to you during that wait. It's the way you start to shrink yourself. The way you start apologizing for having needs. The way you begin monitoring your own emotions like they're the problem. Constantly asking yourself, am I being too much? Am I asking for too much? Am I expecting too much? And here's what I need you to understand. When you find yourself constantly wondering if your needs are reasonable, that's usually a sign that the person you're with is making you feel unreasonable for having them. Because the right person doesn't make you feel like wanting consistency is demanding. They don't make you feel like expecting communication is needy. They don't make you feel like desiring commitment is pressure. I've watched people lose themselves in these situations. I've seen confident, vibrant individuals become anxious, second-guessing versions of themselves, all because they're trying to fit into the limited space someone else is offering. And that's not love. That's not even close to love. That's accommodation. That's contortion. That's making yourself smaller so someone else doesn't have to step up. Now, I want to talk about something that often gets overlooked in these breadcrumb relationships, the future you're building, or rather, the future you're not building. Because while you're waiting for this person to decide if they want you, while you're analyzing their mixed signals and trying to decode their confusing behavior, time is passing. Real time. Time you could be spending either building something genuine with someone else or, just as importantly, building a fuller, richer life for yourself. Think about it. When you're constantly in that state of waiting, that state of hoping, that state of maybe this will change, you're not fully present in your own life. You're not making plans that don't include them because what if they finally come around? You're not fully opening yourself to new possibilities because you're still holding space for them. You're not investing in yourself the way you should because so much of your emotional energy is tied up in this situation that's going nowhere. And meanwhile, they're living their life. They're not sitting around consumed by thoughts of you. They're not agonizing over whether to text you. They're not losing sleep wondering if you're upset. They're going about their business, giving you just enough to keep you there, but not so much that they have to actually commit to anything real.